and the residents and business owners within town. So I just want to talk a little bit about the Hamlet Revitalization Project. So it's a multifaceted project. It's not one element, and there's many elements. And the element we're going to talk about tonight specifically is about the infrastructure portion in the Hamlet, which would involve pedestrian walkways, connectivity from the east side and the west side of Route 17, beautification, which is the complete street concepts. Also, got to look here, and parking. Parking is very important. So why are we doing this? So we're doing this because what we want to do is make an environment that is friendly, not only for the people who live here, but the people who come here to visit, and to making it a point of destination. So we want to encourage businesses to come here, and for them to come here, we have to provide some of these services that make it a friendly environment. So to the benefit of the people who live here and to the benefit of people who come here as tourism. Currently, everybody passes through. We want them to stop here. We want them to spend their money here. We want them to have a place where our lifestyles are improved. So the key benefit for all of these efforts is really to encourage economic development. We are looking at ways in which we can improve the business atmosphere downtown. And the benefit to that is when you have ratables, it helps with your taxes. It also, when you have a place that's beautiful and a place where everyone wants to live, the values of your homes increase. So it is a beneficial program. I truly believe in it. And I'm going to pass the baton now to Michelle.
Thank you. So tonight, I want to introduce the people who have been working with us on the Hamlet Revitalization Committee. They come from all areas of Tuxedo, so each area is well represented. We have one business owner, Jeff Spiegel from SOS Fuel, is on our committee. And the other residents are John Bagno, who is chair of our planning board, Marlene Portnoy, sitting here, John Ruel, member of the planning board as well, Justin Jennings, if he's here, Noreen Fennell, Chamber of Commerce, Julie Reed, Bonnie Takeuchi, and myself. I chair this committee along with councilperson Deirdre Murphy, and I saw the supervisor, Dave McMillan. Where did he go? He was here a second. Okay. And Bonnie Franson, our town planner, is also on our committee. But of course, this committee is building on the work of many other committees in the past. Actually, 20 years ago, the very first Hamlet study was conducted by the town board at that time. The Burgess Associates created a town center plan, and it has been sitting there, and it was updated in 2022 by Burgess Associates. Many of the people who worked on that original committee are here. I see Sue and Claudia, Donna. There's a lot of people. We had stakeholders from all aspects of Tuxedo who participated. We had fire department, we had Sterling Forest Visitor Center, the library, businesses. It was just the schools. It was a great group of stakeholders, and we're finally where we are today, where we're planning the grant proposal that we are going to submit for the New York Forward grant of $4.5 million to New York State, and that happens in September. So you'll see the time frame that we are working on to get to that point. So today, the master plan, stage 1, is in development, and our engineering and design consultants will go through it with us. But most importantly, we want public input. That is extremely important to us. So with that, I will turn it over to Jesse from Creighton Manning, our engineering consultant. Whoops.
One second while they load the presentation.
We have some chairs up there for anybody who would like to sit.
Great, well, thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us to learn about the Route 17 Hamlet Revitalization Plan. I want to note that this presentation is being recorded for posting to our project website. So if you could please hold all your questions and comments to the end, we'll be happy to address them during the breakout. So taking a look at our agenda and the meeting objectives, key points for tonight are to inform you about the plan, show you the sketch plans that have been created after reviewing some of the existing conditions, and really get your feedback. We want to hear from you, what's important, what you like to see, what you may not like to see. Looking at the draft study purpose here, the keys are to enhance connectivity through the Hamlet so that we can make it more comfortable for pedestrians and all people to come, stay, and support economic development. I really want to make it a complete street that's good for all users, pedestrians, bicycles, not just vehicles. You can see our study area here on the next slide. Goes from Southside Place here at the south side all the way to East Village Road here in the north. You can also see a number of pictures that we took during our field walk where we took a look at the existing conditions. Here's our project scope and schedule. We took a look at existing conditions and developed the sketches that you'll see tonight. Now we're here to get your feedback on what you're seeing. Once we get your feedback, we'll go back and refine the plans. We'll have another round of engagement in August and then come up with the final plan, which will be used for the grant application. You can see the overall timeline here, starting with the study, goes to find some construction funding, building environmental review and design, more public involvement, and then ultimately construction. So why are we looking at the study now? Builds on a lot of the previous studies that were done for the corridor. Most notably, I think, is in 2022, the streetscape improvement study. This study is going to build off of a lot of the recommendations from that plan, identify some of the obstacles to improvements, and really get your input so that there's a lot of support for the plan moving forward. Looking at existing conditions, you can see a number of the roadway characteristics here on the screen. Notably, right now, the Route 17 corridor is a 4-lane roadway. When we take a look at traffic volumes, we see that the road carries about 15,000 vehicles per day, which is below the capacity of the road, indicating that there might be opportunity to repurpose lanes to free up space to make it more inviting and friendly for pedestrians, come stay, visit businesses, spend their money. Looking at pedestrian characteristics now, it's important to note that the sidewalks are narrow. They're not up to DOT standards, very close to the roadway, and there are gaps in the network, which make it hard for people to get where they need to go. Again, this makes it less inviting, less likely that people will stay and enjoy the corridor. Then we also took a look at the transit services in the corridor. It's one of the unique things in Orange County that the Route 17 corridor has both bus and train transit service. And so all the concepts that we're going to show you really do consider the connectivity so that people can access those services. With that, I'll turn it over to Dave.
Alrighty. Well, thank you. So my name is Dave Lustberg. I'm an urban designer and landscape architect with a company called Arterial, and we're a subconsultant to Creighton Manning Engineering. So our real job is we focus on street design of streets and public spaces. So that's what I'm going to speak to a little bit here. So when we look at the streets in Tuxedo, and just by a show of hands, how many people here are store owners? And how many are residents? All right, all residents, great. Perfect. Okay, so when we think about the streets in Tuxedo, you know, we want to think about all the purposes that those streets can serve. So, like Deidre mentioned, the importance of infrastructure. We spend a lot of money on these things. We want them to do the best that they can for us. So, so the first thing that we look at when we're thinking about streets are priorities, right? So we want to look at the street and we want to decide how we want that street to function. So do we want it to be more for cars, more for people, more for bikes? What purpose do we want it to serve? The next thing that we look at is the performance, and the performance is the design of that street. So that's, you know, the materials, the actual nuts and bolts of the street, the lighting, etc. So today, for this first session, we're going to be focusing a lot on the priorities. We want to make decisions about how our streets and public spaces are used, and a little bit about performance. So go ahead, Lexi. So this is a scale when we think about priorities. So you can see the scale goes from the right side a car first street or a car priority street, all the way to the left side, which we call a place first street. And there's a whole slew of options in between, right? And it's not to say that we think one is better than the other. This is not like we don't like cars or we don't like bikes or that kind of thing. It's that we want to make conscious decisions about how our streets are used. So, for example, Route 17 right now, it's no secret, is probably far on the car first side, right? And is that where we want it to be, or do we want to push that arrow to the left? So we'll just show quickly. So this might be what a car first street looks like in a downtown, right? So we have 4 lanes of traffic parking. This is not dissimilar to Route 17 with the exception of the parking, right? Now, if we take that arrow and we push it to the left, we do this, right? So now we've eliminated travel lanes, we've introduced bicycle lanes, and we've shifted that priority. We've built a median in for traffic calming, et cetera. So then we can also take that arrow, push it further to the left, right? And now we've widened the sidewalks even further. We have protected bicycle lanes. We have nice spaces for pedestrians. We could even push it further to the left. And this is like a main street. This is like a typical cross section for a main street. So nice wide sidewalks. We're showing a mid-block crossing. We're showing these bump outs with landscapes, some nice seating pockets, lighting, et cetera. And then we can take that arrow and we can push it all the way to the left. And this is what we call a shared street. So this is a street that really prioritizes pedestrians and cars become secondary on that street. And again, I want to reiterate that we're not suggesting that far to the left here on this scale is the better thing. It's just that we want to decide as a community how we want our streets to be used. So for example, if the car is far right on this, and we feel like it needs to be a main street, then we know we have to take steps to move that arrow, right? And that's what we want to learn about today. So let's go ahead. We'll show you some examples. So, I'm sorry. So this is about the performance, right? So we look at streets performance, we look at 5 categories, and we're going to touch on this a little bit today, but the focus really is on the priorities. But so we look at 5 categories. Functionality, we want the street to operate the way it should. Arts and culture, does the street represent the place that it's in? So do the streets in Tuxedo and the public spaces represent the culture and history of Tuxedo, the story that you want to tell? Health and the environment, are they sustainable? Economic vitality, very important one that Deidre was touching on, right? Is we want to make sure that we're designing these streets to really foster economic vitality in our stores and our commercial properties and really sort of have those places thrive. And then finally is design quality. And this is not like subjective, like do you like the design or not? This is about quality materials, quality detailing, so that once you build this, if we get this, if we're lucky enough to get this grant, we build the street, we don't want you to be saddled with decades of maintenance, right? We want to build it the right way, quality materials. So now we'll just show a couple of examples. So go ahead. This is an example from Millburn, New Jersey. So go ahead, Lexi. So this is the before image of Millburn Avenue, right? So this is Main Street in Millburn. So they had narrow sidewalks. That's a live travel lane that truck is in, just like here. So you can imagine if you're a pedestrian standing there, that truck is 40 miles per hour. If a child steps off. So it's similar to Tuxedo. So they wanted to make this into their main street. So they knew they had to take that arrow and push it to the left. Go ahead, Lexi. And so this is the after, right? So we took one of the travel lanes, we went from 4 to 3, and we gave 4 feet of width to each sidewalk on either side. That gave us enough space to create this buffer. Go ahead. This is another before, so you can see the 4 travel lanes, and then go ahead to the after. So you can see we reduced to 3 travel lanes. We introduced these overhead string lights, right? So this is traffic calming, creates a sense of place, created a nice buffer. Go ahead, Lexi. And then on the weekends, from Thursday to Sunday, they close this street and it becomes a public plaza. So this is a street that they close down entirely and they open it up to restaurants. And this was something that they did temporarily for COVID. And then now they ended up doing it every single weekend from spring to winter. Go ahead. And then when I talk about performance, we look at the materials, right? So now we build some of the history into the landscape, right? So Millburn, so it was founded on mills. So we had a millstone set into the sidewalk to start to tell that story. And we used local stone, local granite, et cetera. So we're not overtly telling that story, but we're subtly telling it through the landscape. Go ahead. Next example is Park Street in Montclair. Go ahead. And this is taking a street and turning it into a flexible street. So go ahead. So this was the street before, so angled parking. This is the street after. So we widened the sidewalks. We reduced the parking a little bit. They lost, I think, around 10 parking spaces. Flush median, traffic calming. And now these stores are now thriving, right? This is a place people want to be. Go ahead. And you can see here's a bird's eye view. So some of the details, the flush median, the paved parking areas. So this really becomes a plaza on the weekends. Go ahead. So, and some of the subtleties, right? You see this raised planter here. Now it provides green space, but it also provides comfortable seating for people. So we want them to stay longer. If someone buys ice cream or buys a sandwich, we want them to sit here facing the stores and sit and enjoy their sandwich while they're looking at the stores. So now they're window shopping also, right? The longer they stay, the more likely they are to spend some money here. So go ahead. And the final one is really pushing that arrow all the way to the left and going from a car first to fully pedestrian street, right? So this is Seymour Street in Montclair. So this is the before, right? It was a low volume vehicular street. That's a 2,000 seat historic theater on your right. This is the after. So they vacated the street entirely, built a plaza. And now this is actually 2 blocks from our office. So we go here for lunch all the time. And it's a great space to hang out. They have live music there. People love to come here and just kind of hang out. And now these stores, et cetera, are thriving. Go ahead. So before concerts, this is where people gather. You can see some of the elements, the overhead string lights, the totem denoting where you are, placemaking, bicycle parking, all of the things that sort of make people want to stay. Go ahead. And an interesting thing here is in the back of the plaza, there's a lot of topography here. So there's a lot of slope, similar to how there is here in Tuxedo, right? So we had to figure out how to use that grade. So we created this stair in the back. We call it performance stair. So day to day, this is a staircase or for people to hang out. But the landing platform, we sized to be the same size as the stage that they usually rent for music events. So now when they have events here, that mid-level there becomes the stage. So if you flip to the next slide, you can see here, this is what they do during events. That becomes a stage, and this becomes an outdoor venue for them to have events. So it's about that flexibility, about thinking ahead and sort of thinking about how we can use our streets the best way that we can. So, okay, so with that, we'll talk a little bit about some ideas and concepts that we've been throwing around for Tuxedo. And I think one of the important things we want to emphasize here is the reason that we're here. None of this is carved in stone. None of this is fleshed out. These are ideas on paper, right? This is a sketch plan. And the whole purpose of tonight is for us to put these ideas on the table and hear from all of you. So we're going to break out. You're going to have plenty of time to discuss and hash out all these ideas. So this is the initial introduction. Okay. So, sorry. I'm going to sneak in here. I'm sorry if I'm in the way. Let me know. So there's 5 key moves that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about this in the breakout. So the first key move is to get sidewalks somehow along Route 17, right? We want people to be able to walk safely north and south on Route 17, right? In some capacity. And we'll talk about how that can be achieved. Number 2 is the idea of inboarding sidewalks on the library side of the street, right? So on the west side. And what that idea is most of the buildings on that side, right, from Tuxedo Square to the library, working your way across, they all have broken up independent sidewalks in front of their buildings. So if we can connect those sidewalks, we can effectively create a consistent sidewalk along that side of the road that's off of Route 17 and protect. Number 3 is gateways. When people arrive in the CBD, we want them to know that they're here, and we want them to know that it's a unique place, and we want them to know to expect people to be on the street. You know, you can't do 50 miles per hour through here. There's kids, there's people visiting, et cetera, right? So gateway at the north end, up by the entrance to Tuxedo Park, and a gateway at the south end, which we're showing at the ambulance building at Schoolhouse Road right now, which you'll see more about that in a minute. Shared street. So this idea is taking Store Road and Park Ave and making them kind of what they're already being used for in a way, right? Right now, there's slow speed roads that are used by cars, but also kids walk on them and bikes go on them. And it's a nice traverse that's really buffered quiet from back from Route 17. So that's here in the future color along the top. So the idea of just moving it, continuing to move it in that direction, right? To do some things that make it even more safe for pedestrians and bicyclists. And then finally is public space. And this is about, you know, I live in Warwick, so I live right next door here. And, you know, the reason I love living in Warwick is probably similar to the reason a lot of you love living here, which is to be outside, right? It's the outdoors, the environment. And that's why a lot of people like to come up here on the weekends and things, right? And so we want to make sure that we're giving them places to be outside, right? We want to make sure that we're giving them those pockets, those spaces to spend time outside and giving it for all of us, right? So looking at the CBD and looking at areas of how we can work in or improve existing spaces so that we can create some of those pockets. Okay, so go ahead. So just talking for a minute about Route 17 and how we get sidewalks there. So this is what we call a cross section, right? So this is a slice through the road if you were looking north on Route 17. So on the right side here, this is the post office side. This is the library side. So on this side, we have about an 8-foot sidewalk. Then we have 4 12-foot travel lanes for vehicles. And then we have a little 4-foot sidewalk. And then there's the utility poles. So you're really kind of pinned in there. The 4-foot sidewalk doesn't work so well. It's not very comfortable to walk along as, you know. So the first section is doing a road diet, right? So this is similar to what they did in Sloatsburg, but different. Taking one lane of traffic, so going from 4 to 3. And this is an asymmetrical road diet, this first option. So this is taking all of that width that we gained and giving it to the post office side of the road, right? So that side has some commercial, is really broken up, and it's difficult to make some sidewalk connections. So creating a promenade essentially from the train station all the way down essentially the Schoolhouse Road. And that's what you see here. We end up with around a 20-foot wide promenade that would run from the train station all the way to Schoolhouse Road, making a great connection for students, for people, for visitors, et cetera. On the other side of the road, on the library side, we would do that inboard that I mentioned, right? So on that side, we would close this 4-foot sidewalk, use it for landscape or something else, and move that sidewalk inboard. The symmetrical road diet is a similar concept, 4 to 3, except we split that space evenly between the two sides. So we give, 6 feet to this side, and we give 6 feet to this side. So on the post office side, you get a 14-foot sidewalk, which is a nice width, enough for buffers, planting. And on the library side, we get a 5-foot buffer and a 5-foot sidewalk. So feels a lot more comfortable to walk on that, right? You have a little buffer, some landscape between you and a lot of traffic. So that's a symmetrical road diet. And then, of course, this is a state road and we have to deal with New York DOT. So we don't know if we can get a road diet or if we want a road diet. That's what we're going to find out tonight, right? So if we can't do a road diet, then we keep the 4 lanes and we have 8 feet on the one side, which we have today, and we just build on that, right? The 8 foot we could work with. And then we inboard the sidewalk on the other side, on the library side. So those are some options on how to get the sidewalks in there. Go ahead, Lexi. What are we doing on time? We got about 5 minutes. Okay, so now this is a very quick sketch plan that we put together just to show you how some of this might lay out on site, right? So you can see Route 17 is running left to right on the page. The top side of the page, you can see Tuxedo Square here, the library for orientation, the train station. So just walking through this plan, some of those key elements, what this might look like, right? So the first thing is the arrival coming from the north, right? So you're coming here, this is the entrance up to Tuxedo Park. And you get to this point, this intersection, which is a key intersection at the train station. This is an intersection that the MTA is planning a signal for, right? So this is a good chance this is going to become a signalized intersection. So this becoming a signalized intersection, we thought that that might be an opportunity to eliminate the lane, this slip lane that comes through here that allows you to just sort of, ramp up as you're coming up onto Route 17. And that slip lane there, actually you come down to a signal. And then that space becomes, we're referring to it as a gateway park. But you can imagine you arrive at the village coming from the north, this directly across from the train station, this becomes a beautiful sort of terraced gathering space for whatever we might use it. Directly across the street from that is the train station, this sort of lawn area and Antonelli Drive, which is the connection to the trail. So this would become the other side of that gateway. So it's almost like you're passing through a little park space as you arrive here. In Antonelli Drive, we're showing some additional parking and also the introduction of a new pedestrian path to connect to the trail system, which today people are walking mainly on the driveway itself. We also think that this is a great opportunity to create a trailhead so that visitors, when they come to Tuxedo, this is a great opportunity to tell them what the Hamlet has to offer, right? So some signage, some wayfinding to let them know what's in the area. Now, something you'll notice is you'll see these sort of brick colored spaces, right, marching their way down. And those are all public spaces, right? That's the creation of public spaces. And we like to refer to them as breadcrumbs, right? So we want to give people a reason to kind of visit the town and walk around, right? And even for us, you want some place to go, right? You want some place to, why am I continuing to walk? So we want to create a series of public spaces that march their way down the street and sidewalks connecting them. So the first main public space here that you see is actually taking Van Zandt and taking that arrow on Van Zandt and pushing it all the way to the left and making Van Zandt into a pedestrian street. That would be for events, for things like that last example that I showed you. And Van Zandt, from what we can tell, is a very low volume road. Seems, not used very often, and seems like a great opportunity to capitalize on some additional space. Directly across the street from the train station, which is one of the most beautiful assets here in the CBD, right? The train station building recently renovated. So creating sort of opposing spaces outside the train station and across the street at Van Zandt. Then you'll see from Van Zandt, you'll see this brick colored path. That's that inboard sidewalk that I referred to, right? So now, if we have this plaza space, now you'll be able to walk and sort of make your way down and visit the different things and loop back, right? So it's a nice walking loop that is, generally a nice way to visit different spaces. And you'll see that at these different intersections, we've really punched them up a little bit to improve safety. Whether or not they're signalized is something that is still being worked out, but creating these different access points for pedestrians to cross the street. And along this entire east side here, this is the asymmetrical option that we referred to. So this is that option where we create a promenade running down the entire east side. So you can see that on this side, you now have a really nice safe connection all the way through. Finally is the Park Ave to Store Road connection here. And this is that space that we discussed as a shared street, right? And not much has to happen for that to happen. We just have to push it along in the direction it's going, right? It's really takes very little to get it there. It feels, for me, as someone visiting here, it feels very nice back there. It feels very quiet and peaceful. So I think it really just needs a nudge in the right direction for this to become a nice north-south access point for bikes and pedestrians. And then finally, we mentioned the gateway down at the south end. So this is just a quick enlargement of what that might be. And so what we thought was we could take some of that stone element right, that we saw that we see throughout the village, that's very characteristic of Tuxedo, and bring some of that down to the south end gateway, maybe an entry wall there that, you know, maybe announces the entrance into the CBD, et cetera, creates a nice, safe pedestrian crossing. And this is the moment where drivers are coming in, they come to this intersection, and now they know they're crossing the threshold, they're now into the CBD, expect pedestrians on the street, and I'm sort of entering a different zone. So this is that southern gateway. So the last thing I'll mention is, you know, this presentation is really all about priorities, right? So we're discussing a lot of like, what can we do with this street? How can we use that street? There's a layer on top of this that will be the performance. And that includes things like lighting, right? So we're going to look at lighting throughout the downtown so that we know that there's safe, effective lighting as you're crossing into the downtown. It doesn't feel dark. We'll talk about materiality and furniture and all of those fun things. But that's to come. So with that, do you want, Mark, you want me to break everybody up or?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So the plan now is to break up into groups, and we've got a good sized crowd here. We need to break up into 6 groups, and I'm going to ask people that are not currently sitting at a table, or if you're close enough to one of these tables, you can stay here, but people that are not sitting at a table, move into the other room across the hall with Jesse. Jesse will facilitate the discussion in there. Before you do, let me give you the instructions for the breakout. There will be a facilitator at each table annotating the discussion on the 5 key moves that you just heard about. We'll spend about 10 minutes talking about each of the 5 key moves, and then another 10 minutes to cover anything else not discussed or transition and being back in this room or back on everyone. So there'll be a facilitator at each one of these 5 tables. You want to move around one that's fine. Otherwise, move in with that room, standing. Jesse will be there with an easel and a pad. Everything, you guys further now.